In this video, we're going to be looking at how to set up your proportions correctly when drawing portraits. The first thing that you want to start out with is just simple shapes and forms. So I'm quickly sketching an outline for the face. So I'm making just a quick oval. I went around a couple times just to try to find the center. And then I'm dividing that oval in half to find the line for the eyes. So just quickly do a light line for where the eyes potentially could be. Once you have the eyes found, which they're actually just slightly higher than the midpoint, but once you have the eyes found, I then drew a line dividing where the eyes and the chin are in half, and that's most likely where the nose will be. So again, I'm just laying out the basic proportions, and then we'll go back and edit and change these up if we need to. So again, the nose is about halfway in between, so that's that line there. And then I divide it in half one more time for where the center of the lips could be. So I'm dividing that space in half again. So eyes, divide that in half for the nose, divide that in half for the lips. And then I'm just doing a quick outline of where the eyes will go. We're going to eventually measure and make sure that these are in the right spot. Typically, the space between the eyes is the same width of the eyes, and then on the outside of your eyes, there should be a little space as well that's slightly smaller than the size of the eyes. So what I did was just quickly draw two circles and kind of guess at the spacing, and then I went back in and drew a circle the same size in the middle, and then two smaller ones on the outside just to make sure that everything's going to fit lined up in that space. So you could start by dividing it up into your circles here, so 5 of the same size circles, and then go back and make these two or the 3 in the middle a little bit larger and mess around with the sizing. But make sure again that you have about 5 circles there, and the 2 for the eyes are the largest, and then the space in the middle is about the same or slightly smaller. But now we're going to go in and measure the distance of the eyes because everyone's are different. Some people have eyes that are further apart. Some people have eyes that are closer together. So again, we're starting with the average proportions, laying those out, and then we're measuring to see how those proportions compare to the person that you're actually drawing. So right now I'm using my pencil to measure the width of the eye. So I'm just holding that at the corner of the eye, putting my thumb right where the inside is, and measuring to see if that size of the eye is the same or slightly smaller. So my eyes are a little closer together than the average proportions. So the eye, or the middle of the eye, is going to be slightly smaller than the eye itself. So when I take my finger and pencil and measure the eye here, it should be just slightly bigger than that section in the middle. So again, I'm holding the corner there on the side, and then I'm measuring the side of the eye compared to the actual eye itself. So that's about half of the eye. So when I measure the sides here, I'm going to measure first of all the width of the eye first, and then make sure that the side is about half of the width of the eye. So when you're doing the measurements for the eye, again, start by measuring the picture. So I'm holding my pencil from the corner to the edge and putting my thumb where the edge of the eye is. And then I'm measuring to see how that compares to the center of the eye. So when I hold the pencil here, it was slightly longer where my thumb started at the corner, and then the tip of the pencil ended here, it was slightly larger. So I know that this distance is a little bit smaller. So when I come back to my drawing, I'm going to let go and completely restart the measurement on my picture, and I'm going to measure the eye here because I know that this is the eye that I want to base all of the measurements off of. So I'm holding my pencil in that corner of that eye, and then holding my thumb where the far right side of the eye is, and then I'm going to use that measurement from this paper, move my pencil over to measure the distance in the middle. And when I measure the distance in the middle, I can make sure that that pencil goes slightly further into the left eye over here. So making sure that this left eye starts where the eye over here continued to extend into. So again, if this does sound confusing, definitely let me know, but base all of your measurements off of one eye so that everything is going to be able to be even. We're going to go ahead and continue on with the next step. So again, I'm just using my pencil to make all of my measurements based off of the eye. The nose and mouth is what I am going to be working on next. So I'm holding my pencil up to the eye and I'm measuring down from the corner of the eye to see how many eye widths my nose equals. So my nose is 1 and then just a little bit longer from that measurement of the right eye. So when I measure the eye over here, I'm going to turn that pencil down and then make sure that the width of the nose or the height of the nose is slightly longer than where I put that measurement for the eye. So I'm making that mark just a little bit lower. So now I'm going back to my picture and measuring the eye again, getting that baseline, and then measuring how far down the lips are. So the bottom of the bottom lip is about 2 widths of the eye in measurement down from the center. So when I measure the eye that I have on my drawing, I'm going to extend that down twice to get the bottom of the lips. Now typically on an average face, the inside of the eyes is going to equal the same as the width of the nose. So you can just drop a line straight down from there for now. And then the outside of the lips are typically even with the middle of the eyes. So you can draw a line straight down from the middle of the eyes for the width of the mouth there. So what I'm doing now is just double checking to make sure that this is correct for my face or the face that you're going to be drawing, because again, these are just average proportions. So I'm holding my pencil to make sure that the inside of the eye does actually meet with the outside of the nose. And again, my eyes are slightly closer together there, so I'm making sure that the nose extends just slightly further than the inside of the eye. And it might be different for the left side of the nose and the right side of the nose, so make sure you double check both measurements there. Now I also checked the width of my nose to see if it was the same as the width of my eye, and if it wasn't, I could make any changes, but it did measure the same. And then I'm also measuring for the width of the mouth to make sure that I can have that correct. So the width of the one eye goes slightly past the middle of the mouth. So I'm going to make that line for I want my mouth to start on the left and make sure that my measurement goes slightly past the middle point. And then I'm lining up to see where this left side of the pencil lines up with the inside of the mouth to make sure that that middle actually is accurate. So this side, it lines up perfectly on the outside of the lip there. And then this side over here, I'll double check the measurements next. And there is a little bit of a space from where the inside of the eye is on this side. So I'm going to make sure that I leave that little bit of a gap from where the middle of the eye is and the outside of the mouth on the left side there. And now I'm measuring the chin. So the chin is just slightly shorter than the width of the eye. So I'm going to grab the width of my eye for my drawing and measure down for the chin and make sure that it is just slightly higher from that measurement and lay that mark out. So again, it's important to make sure that you have all of these basics laid out first before you start adding detail. If you realize that something is off when you do go in after having a lot of detail, it saves a lot of time versus erasing all of your shading and hard work and starting from scratch. So definitely important to lay out all of these basic measurements first to get things as accurate as possible. Now I'm measuring the height of the forehead, how many eyes fit in the height of the forehead, and then touching up the outline of the hair here. And just really looking at the shape of the face. So try to look at some of the negative space, so not just looking at the direction of the line, but look at what some of the spaces make in between the outside of the face and the facial features. So this is a line here that gets a little bit thicker as it comes down towards the chin. So I can make sure that that extends out. I can also draw just simple circles to fill that space that I'm able to then draw around the outside of. So now I'm starting to just lay things out with a little bit more detail. I'm looking at not only highlights but shadows too, so I'm just lightly outlining where all the highlights and shadows go. Because highlights and shadows are what should make up your outline versus just a contour single line. So really look for those highlights and shadows that you can add into the face. So I'm just really trying to get a good outline there, making sure that I'm looking again at that space that is the negative areas, so the negative space that's around the face there. And just really trying to look at those highlights and shadows. Another thing you can do is measure the angle of things. So if you have your paper and your picture lined up at the same angle, you can hold your pencil up to your picture and then keep that angle and hold it up and move it off to the side of your other picture at the same angle, just to double check and see that the angle of the face is correct, or the angle of the lips and different facial features. So that really helps again to just get those proportions the best that you can. So double check all angles. So now I'm holding up my pencil to just double check where the bottom of the ear lines up to. And I'm going to jump a little bit here, so we're starting to add more details. You can see more and more shadows being outlined. When you're working on the nose, remember to start with just those basic shapes. Look for where you can draw those 3 circles, what part of the nose is the lowest, which normally will be the middle part of the nose, and then the 2 outsides will be slightly higher circles there. You can see all those highlights and shadows are starting to get refined. I'm really outlining more and more detail as I go, trying my best to stay as simplified as possible. So wait till the very end once you know your proportions are correct before you start shading and before you start adding too much detail. So I'm going to leave a lot of those details in the eye for last. You can use that kneaded eraser to double check that you have some areas that aren't too dark. And then I'm going in and just double checking angles. Remember again to hold that pencil up at the correct angle in the picture, keep that angle, and just transfer it to your drawing. So I'm lightly outlining where the eyebrows will go, and just really looking at all of those different shapes and spaces on the face. So keep it simple, and remember to try your best to really outline positive and negative spaces, and double check all proportions before you add detail.